From the Cronkite Studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
Mr. Shooter, how do you vote?
I vote no.
Shooter votes no.
But 56 others voted yes. A historic day in Arizona politics. The House of Representatives expels Representative Don Shooter after reports of sexual harassment.
Plus, it's crunch time for Congress to reach a budget deal. We weigh the chances of another government shutdown.
And the Waste Management Phoenix Open is expecting record-breaking crowd this weekend. How Scottsdale police are working to make a fun but safe event.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Nicole Costantino.
And I'm Gabriel Gamino. Thank you for joining us. In what is believed to be the first expulsion of a government official since the beginning of the Me Too movement, the Arizona House of Representatives voted Don Shooter out of his seat this afternoon. Cronkite News reporter Emily Richardson is live to explain how a letter from Shooter changed the course of his career.
It was a turbulent day at the Capitol. What appeared to be a delay tactic resulted in a swift action instead.
I vote aye.
With that vote, Representative Don Shooter from Yuma was removed from office. An independent investigation against Shooter found credible evidence of sexual harassment. The details were released on Monday. On Tuesday, Shooter released a statement that read in part, "This has been a humbling and eye-opening experience for me. I look forward to working to repair relationships and serving my constituents and our great state." Today, before an expected vote on the censure for Shooter, he released a two-page letter. In the letter, Shooter appears to be showing support for another alleged victim of sexual harassment at the hands of another member of the House. He explains in graphic detail the allegations and the claims they should be investigating before any action is taken against him. Shortly after the letter was sent, Speaker of the House, J.D. Mesnard, released a statement that he would seek Shooter's expulsion from the House. It said in part, "The outside investigators who Rep. Shooter praised on Tuesday have thoroughly examined every allegation made, including the allegation referenced in Rep. Shooter's letter. After addressing issues of privacy and relevancy, they included their findings in the report." After the voting began, Shooter was the first to explain why he voted the way he did.
I've said stupid things. I've done stupid things. I stood on the carpet. I took it like a man. I apologized. Can't go back to the past. I can't change it, but I can change the future if given the opportunity.
Shooter then left the floor and did not return. Many other members decided to share why they voted the way that they did. Alongside Shooter, Campbell and Stringer voted no, saying that the due process was not done correctly and it was up to his constituents to take away his seat. Everyone else, except Barden, who was absent, voted yes, many claiming it was a horrible day for the House and claiming they were upset Shooter made them vote instead of resigning. Shooter's seatmate, Darren Mitchell, said that his wife no longer comes to the Capitol because Shooter's actions make her uncomfortable and that the reality of Shooter's actions are way more vulgar than the report shows.
Years ago, my wife had a stalker. That stalker went to prison. And when we met Don Shooter 6 years ago, she began to see similar character traits in Don.
Last to cast their vote was Mesnard.
We're family. And we've just expelled somebody from this family.
The expulsion takes place immediately. Live in the Media Center, Emily Richardson, Cronkite News.
An Arizona state lawmaker hasn't been expelled in Arizona for over 25 years. In recent history, there have been two other lawmakers to resign in Arizona amid controversy, which could have ultimately led to their expulsion. Senator Scott Bungard and Representative Daniel Patterson both resigned in 2012. Historians note that a common reason for expulsion from a position is an ethics scandal. Depend on Cronkite News for all continuing coverage of Arizona legislature. You can check out our social channels and find multimedia reports on cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
It was just last week that Congress ended a 3-day government shutdown, extending the budget to February 8th in exchange for a vote on immigration reform. But with 1 week to go, will lawmakers be able to keep the lights on, or will they act, as one expert said, like squabbling children? Ariana Bustos breaks it down for us from our Washington bureau.
With Republicans on a retreat until Monday and no vote scheduled on immigration reform, Congress will have just 3 working days to come to a budget deal. Teresa Cardinal Brown of the Bipartisan Policy Center says it doesn't look good.
Where we stand right now, honestly, on the immigration stuff, I don't believe that they're going to have a final resolution by February 8th. And it appears that there may be an effort actually to decouple the immigration conversation from the continuing resolution.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said today that he will bring an immigration deal to a vote if the government is still open on Thursday. Chris Edwards, an economist at the Cato Institute in Washington, says he thinks there will not be a shutdown and that it is in Congress's best interest to come to a deal.
Shutdowns create newspaper headlines that members of Congress are sort of like squabbling children and they're not getting their job done. I don't think any party wants that. So I think that's the biggest impetus for them to get a deal.
Despite that, he thinks there is a lack of trust in Congress, leading Democrats to worry about empty promises.
Trust is an issue here. Often, politicians will say, if we get your vote on this, then we promise we will help you with that down the road. The two parties don't seem to trust each other much these days, which is one of the problems why the trains don't run on time in the budget process as they used to.
Brown says the likelihood of a shutdown is up in the air, and it can be difficult to predict what's going to happen.
I never lay odds on Congress, because just when you think all is lost, something could happen, and just when you think it all comes together, it all falls apart. And that has happened more times than I can count when it comes to immigration.
Reporting from Washington, D.C., Ariana Bustos, Cronkite News.
Even though Congress is not meeting, both of the experts we talked to said discussions are still going on between lawmakers and their staffs to try and work out a deal.
President Trump is not blocking the release of a controversial memo written by Chairman Devin Nunes to the public. The memo says the FBI abused Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act to obtain a FISA warrant on Trump's former campaign policy advisor. The House Intelligence Committee voted to release the memo earlier this week, and there have been mixed feelings among officials at the Capitol about the release.
United States Senate candidate Joe Arpaio is planning on holding an event in Tennessee called Driving Liberals Crazy in March of this year. This announcement comes after a similar Arpaio event was canceled in Spokane, Washington due to a public backlash. The event organizer says the event originally was going to take place to benefit a Spokane-based veteran group. The event will now be a for-profit only event.
Nearly 1,000 DACA recipients in our state currently work as teachers. That number will continue to rise as DACA college students studying education graduate and find jobs in Arizona, which is suffering from a teacher shortage. Cronkite News reporter Alexis Burdine spoke with a DACA recipient who is unsure if she will be able to fulfill her dream of becoming a teacher.
Every day, Arizona classrooms are run by teachers who may be in the United States working under the protection of DACA. Denise Alvarez wants to be one of them. She's a freshman studying secondary education at Arizona State University and also a DACA recipient.
For someone to be studying education, they really need to be passionate about that.
She says she doesn't even speak Spanish well enough to teach in Mexico if she were to go back.
Why would you want us to leave if we are here to better the education in Arizona and even in the United States?
Arizona is experiencing a serious teacher shortage, and the pattern doesn't seem to have a near end in sight.
Data from a 2017 study by the Morrison Institute for Public Policy shows that Arizona is actually losing more teachers per year than it is producing through Bachelor of Education programs at its 3 state universities.
Loss of DACA recipients studying to become teachers would make an even bigger dent in the number of educators willing to work in Arizona. According to data from the Migration Policy Institute, 3% of the almost 26,000 DACA recipients in Arizona are currently either majoring or working within an educational field. Economics professor Marjorie Baldwin acknowledges the number of DACA eligibles account for less than 0.5% of the overall workforce in the state. Not much, but if they were to leave, Arizona taxpayers' wallets would still feel an impact long term.
Since they were children, they have gone through the Arizona public schools, the secondary schools, the universities. So we, as taxpayers, have invested a lot in these students to train them.
In Phoenix, Alexis Burdine, Cronkite News.
The number of DACA-protected teachers is just a fraction of the nearly 60,000 certified educators in Arizona. But every single teacher matters, as many of them are leaving the profession or seeking education jobs in other states.
Arizona is joining a long list of other states that have passed a law that shields people who call for help for an overdose victim, meaning if they were discovered with drugs, they won't be prosecuted. As Tyler Finger reports, some believe it will save lives, but others think it's a get-out-of-jail-free card.
It's a life or death call.
People shouldn't die over a bad decision.
Jay Fleming is a former undercover narcotics investigator and has seen our nation's drug crisis firsthand.
When I worked undercover, if you're doing drugs and something goes wrong, anything, you're not going to call police. I mean, they're the last people you want to see, especially in an overdose, because, everybody's got drugs that are theirs.
That fear of prison means the person in need may not get the emergency help they need.
I understand drug wars about arrests. The more arrests you get, the more money you get from the feds. But, that shouldn't even come into play when somebody's going to die.
Governor Doug Ducey just signed a new law that would allow so-called Good Samaritans to call for help without the fear of arrest. Arizona joins a long list of other states who provide these protections. Now just 9 don't.
It's important to push because I think it will save lives. It is very good because there is a crisis. There is an absolute opioid crisis.
But not everyone is on board with this. Republican State Representative Eddie Farnsworth told the Associated Press it's a get-out-of-jail-free card. For Fleming, though, he's seen the reality that addiction is a struggle.
Everybody thinks if you use heroin, you're a bad person. These people get addicted, and there's not much they can do.
Now a simple phone call could save a life. At the state capitol, Tyler Finger, Cronkite News.
The Good Samaritan law, along with other aspects of the Opioid Epidemic Act, will take effect in April.
Scottsdale police are issuing stern warnings to golf fans at the Phoenix Open.
Streaking, swimming, even loud heckling can lead to an arrest.
Coming up on Cronkite News, we'll take a closer look at the security in place to keep the Waste Management Phoenix Open safe.
Plus, some Southern Arizona military might will be flying high over the Super Bowl this weekend. We'll explain next.
I'm Judy Woodruff, anchor and managing editor of the PBS NewsHour. The journalists of tomorrow face a fast-changing media landscape, but quality news remains vitally important to our communities, our country, and our world. At ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, students learn solid, reliable reporting, holding the powerful accountable, and rebuilding the public's trust. The Cronkite School and Arizona PBS, preparing the next generation for a stronger future of journalism.
As journalists at Cronkite News, we report on stories that matter to you by focusing on the local impact. We dig deeper and work tirelessly to keep you informed.
Live in Wickerburg.
Live in Los Angeles.
In Cleveland, in Washington, in Louisville.
From Jerusalem.
Live in Philadelphia. From around the world to right here in Phoenix.
At Cronkite News, we report the facts and stick to the truth.
Millions of people die every year from drinking dirty water. I would never have felt I had the ability to do something without ASU pushing me. We built filtration systems out of local materials with the people. To see those kids drink clean water for the first time, it's the most rewarding feeling that you can ever have. I went to ASU because I wanted to change the world. The thing I never would have expected is how the world would have changed me.
The Waste Management Phoenix Open is annually the most attended event on the PGA Tour. And this year, officials expect to shatter yet another attendance record, with nearly 1 million people expected over the course of this week. Cronkite News reporter Tyler Paley is here to explain some of the safety measures authorities are taking this year. Tyler?
Yeah, Nicole, it's all hands on deck for security at this year's Waste Management Phoenix Open. Authorities are looking to keep the peace, both on the ground and in the air. As the Waste Management Phoenix Open prepares for what could be a record-breaking crowd this weekend in Scottsdale, the challenge remains balancing a giant party with a golf tournament. And while tournament officials love the growing fan base, they remind partiers that there's still a sporting event going on.
I think most people know that they're a golf tournament, and obviously they're
going to have a party, they're going to have a good time, but obviously they have to be respectful of other fans that are here to play and to watch some great golf.
To cut down on drunk driving, Scottsdale police are continuing their Know Your Limit initiative, offering free voluntary breathalyzer tests to everyone when they leave TPC Scottsdale.
The person will walk up to the tent and say, hey, I'd like to take the test. They'll tell the officer what they think their level might be. They'll take the test, and for the most part, they always underestimate where they're at.
A strategy that Hoster says is working, and it shows in the numbers.
We have noticed a decline in some of our DUIs because of the Know Your Limit details. So people are realizing, hey, this is not a good idea. I am drunk when I thought I wasn't drunk.
Hoster says authorities face new challenges at this event every year. This year, it's in the air. Scottsdale PD is partnering with 2 companies to help detect drones around the golf course, which he says pose safety threats.
The Waste Management Open is within 1 mile of the Scottsdale Airport, so it is illegal for someone to fly a drone in this area. And it's also dangerous for someone to fly a drone over a large crowd in case it drops, has a malfunction, something like that.
But back on the ground, fans are reminded there will be undercover officers and a DUI task force patrolling all weekend.
If you drive here, we ask people not to drink and drive. We ask people to get dropped off. We ask people to use Uber or Lyft or whatever.
Now, Hoster says hundreds of officers will be staffing this weekend's festivities in Scottsdale, so drunk drivers and drone flyers, beware. For now, live in downtown Phoenix, Tyler Paley, Cronkite News.
This weekend's Super Bowl is getting a special visit from the U.S. Air Force Heritage Flight, and one of the flight crews is based at Davis-Monthan in southern Arizona. The A-10C Thunderbolt II demonstration team from Davis-Monthan will be one of the several participants in the Heritage Flight flyover during the Super Bowl opening ceremonies in Minneapolis. And for one of the A-10 pilots, Major Chad Rudolph, this flyover will be his last official flight as Heritage Flight pilot. He calls the mission bittersweet and sentimental. The Heritage Flight program presents today's state-of-the-art fighter aircraft in a close formation with a vintage aircraft to honor Air Force history. Arizona food banks are looking to improve their food quality.
Coming up on Cronkite News, how local farmers are helping the cause.
And a busy weekend here in the Valley. I have your weekend forecast.
I'm Ted Simons, host and managing editor of Arizona Horizon. Join us each weekday at 5:30 and 10 as we bring you the top newsmakers who impact the state. We cover the stories in depth that shape and affect our local communities, and we take the time to ensure that all voices are equally heard. For more than 30 years, Arizona Horizon has been your voice and your source for what matters most, right here on Arizona PBS.
By the year 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Before Professor Halden, I had an insane amount of passion, but I almost felt helpless because I didn't know how to use it. Professor Halden gave me a chance to make a difference. Being at a place like ASU allows you to take these big leaps. Ultimately, the biggest problems in the world cannot be solved alone.
Food bank leaders and a few lawmakers shared a meal on the Senate lawn today to celebrate Food Bank Day at the Capitol. Reporter Sydney Eisenberg shows us food banks from across the state are coming together to better serve hungry Arizonans.
It was a working lunch outside of the Capitol today. Food bank leaders from across the state shared a lunch and ideas as to better serve their communities. A common issue discussed was finding ways to provide healthier meals, a change that could help more than the person receiving the meal.
If they're eating more healthy, then you get better outcomes from a healthcare delivery standpoint, which lowers the cost to government.
The goal is to better provide food for the community in which a food bank serves. Robert Ojeda, Chief Program Officer for the Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona, says that includes people from across the border.
Everybody's welcomed at our facilities, and we just really feel like hunger is something that's so broad, and there's plenty for us to do. Senate
Majority Leader Steve Yarbrough and Senator David Bradley attended the event to show their support for Arizona food banks. In Phoenix, Sydney Eisenberg, Cronkite News.
According to Feeding America, 1 in 6 people and 1 in 4 children struggle with hunger here in Arizona.
Reservations for the Havasu Pie campsite near the Grand Canyon went on sale this morning at 8 a.m. Every month is already booked for the rest of the season except for some days in February. On average, the cost per night is about $140 per person. Weekends and holidays cost an extra $18 per night, and there is a maximum of 3-night stay to accommodate all hikers who want to see the Havasu landmarks. Our weather has certainly been perfect for hiking all across the valley. Nicole is tracking the forecast for us.
Yeah, we're seeing above average temperatures for this time, but we're going to be sunny and dry all weekend. So remember to drink water and wear sunscreen with that as well. Let's see how we did today. 80 degrees as our high, just below that record of 83 with lows in the low 50s today. Let's go ahead and see. For if you're going to be traveling to the big game this weekend, it's not going to be as nice here. Actually, it's going to be pretty much worse. It's going to be 6 degrees in Minneapolis in case you have some travel plans. But back here in the valley for the big game on Sunday, it's going to be quite nice. 81 degrees for kickoff at about 4:30. Halftime, you want to watch Justin Timberlake, 73. And then when it's time to go home, it's going to be about 62 degrees. Let's look at your 7-day forecast. To start off our weekend, it's going to be nice with highs in the low 80s. And then on game day, 82 degrees. And then let's break out into your work week, and we're going to start seeing a rise back into those mid-80s.
The 2018 Winter Olympics are just a week away. Coming up, the Cronkite News Los Angeles Bureau spoke with Korean Americans who are skeptical of North and South Korea uniting for the Olympics.
Cronkite News weeknights at 5 on Arizona PBS.
Fridays, it's at Cronkite News, your social sharing connection where you choose the news. Facebook likes and shares, tweets, retweets, and favorites. YouTube views and subscriptions. We're watching you watch us. From our digital home at cronkitenews.azpbs.org to your television, web browser, or mobile device. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Then join us for at Cronkite News, our weekly refresh, each Friday at 5 on Arizona PBS.
The two rivals, North and South Korea, have decided to unite for the 2018 Winter Olympics, which start next week. Our Cronkite News Los Angeles Bureau reporter Brooke DeGumbia went to Koreatown to check out the reaction.
With the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics only a week away, reaction to the games can be found here in this Korean-American neighborhood. The last time both countries marched under one Korean unification flag was in the 2006 Winter Olympics. This resident is happy they will join again in 2018.
It's a beautiful thing that they can come under one flag.
Many of those we approached for comments on this story would not speak for attribution in fear of reprisal from North Korea.
I'm pretty ambivalent when it comes to it because, we've been fighting for so long. It's kind of weird that they're coming all of a sudden, they're together all of a sudden.
Just 1 month before the Winter Games will start, the Supreme Leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, decided to send 22 of his athletes south. Some believe the leader is not being sincere.
I believe that he still has some sort of trust in South Korea to, send his athletes down to South, but I don't think he really has a good intention behind it.
It's thought that this is a stepping stone for the future, but others don't think it can ease tensions on the Korean front.
Korea government, they try to make a good relationship between North Korea and South Korea. But I don't think so. It cannot be helpful.
Both sides are skeptical that this will ultimately bring them together, but many are hopeful it can lead to peace at some point.
I'm glad that something's finally changing than rather staying the same.
This community will be watching closely to see how the Olympics will unfold thousands of miles away. In Los Angeles, Brooke DeGumbia, Cronkite News.
North and South Korea will also enter the games together as a joint women's hockey team, which will be the first team sport where they have competed together jointly under the name Korea.
Cronkite News is proud to be the news division of Arizona PBS. Here's what's coming up on Arizona Horizon and PBS NewsHour.
On the next Arizona Horizon, state lawmakers passed legislation targeting opioid abuse, but what do medical workers think of the new laws? And we'll talk to Matt McLeod, whose father, former Suns coach John McLeod, is battling Alzheimer's.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the next NewsHour, making sense of one idea to create a huge fund to fight cancer. That's Thursday on the PBS NewsHour.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.